right, guys, welcome back to BDTR Live Saturday night once again. We got a really interesting guest for you tonight. I think you're going to learn something you probably didn't know much about at all. Welcome, Dee.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing pretty good. I was actually, before the show, we were talking offline, and I was pretty impressed with how quick we solved the technical difficulties, I guess you could call them. So,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, you're very welcome. So, and like I said, I think this is going to be a subject that is going to be foreign to a lot of people who at least haven't experienced it. So, the way I would like to start is could you just give us um, kind of like an all encompassing definition of parental alienation and what is it? Where does it come from? How does that come up? And we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do my best. It's a pseudoscience. It's an uh, very shameful term that's debunked. It's a debunked scientific theory that came from the 80s, from Richard Gardner, who was a believer in pedophilia, and his books are out there. But it was something that I never knew anything about. Um, but it's something that is not a good term. The uh, the Association of Psychology doesn't even recognize it. They refuse to recognize it as the standard of care, um, as a really as putting a label on it, because it is a debunked scientific theory.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at Joan Meyer's studies. So, really, in essence, when you're looking at cases in which they like to use, the courts like to use, especially family courts, like to use uh, different terminology to really get people um, mixed up and confused, is what I like to think of. They change their terminology around. So they'll go high conflict cases. And that typically means one person in the party has a lot of money. Um, and so in these cases with parental alienation, there's uh, an abuser in the situation where there's child abuse, and that can entail either physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all probably know, if you're educated in any type of um, domestic abuse, child abuse, um, there comes along with that many types of abuse where there's financial abuse, coercive control, and there's been, typically something going along those lines where then um, once the abuser, the real true abuser, has the abuse has been alleged, the defense it's the defense's strategy to use parental alienation as their defense.
Mm-hmm.
And then what that does is um, it turns basically, we hear it now as um, gaslighting, but it's basically turning that narrative around and blaming the child, that they're not telling the truth. And so, or the other parent is alienating the child from the abuser. And so these cases are then being looked at as that protective parent is not um, being the protective parent and doing as what they should, and that is reporting the abuse, or the
Mm-hmm.
child reporting the abuse, and therefore the defense's strategy is then to claim parental alienation, and that the either the child or the parent in most cases, because it's the parents going to court, and that they become the alienator and are keeping the child or children from the other parent.
Hmm.
So it becomes a very convoluted, long drawn out process. It costs thousands upon thousands,
Probably
hundreds
tens
of
of
thousands.
thousands of dollars.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, very much so. Um, the children suffer. They go through quite often forensic interviews, and a lot of times there's
Could
been
you go
studies.
into detail about what exactly is a forensic interview? Because from what I've read, like that's pretty stressful on the child and everybody else involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So a forensic interview is where, a child or children um, has to go through, um, well, it can get even real detailed. There might be a safe nurse involved in the case of, rape, but they go through a forensic interview where they meet at like a CAC here in town, a Children's Advocacy Center, where they meet with the team, and they are in a room, in a private room, where they're recorded, where they're watched, tape and audio, given their story, and that is recorded and sent off to authorities, and then it's given to CYS or CPS, whatever the case may be, and then it's turned over to for the authorities to do their investigation.
Hmm.
Um,
Now, is there
and
a set? Do they do this like they'll have a set number? Because I'm assuming they're going to do this more than once because they're going to want to get the story and then see if the story changes. Whatever, maybe they try to do they try to influence like who's doing these interviews?
they have trained. You have to be specifically trained to be a forensic interviewer.
Hmm.
So they have their specific credentials. So they have to go through a licensed training. So you can't just be a forensic interviewer. So
Right.
they are trained specifically. Um, they do go away to certain places. I can't remember. Don't quote me if it's Arkansas or like Texas. I mean, there is specific training for just that. You have to get uh, certified training to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so they know exactly. So if somebody is going through if a child or anybody is going through a forensic interview and it's not by somebody who's certified by any means, then that's even more red flags. But to go
Does
through,
that have you has that ever happened in your experience?
no,
No.
no,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Um, but it is, that information is put uh, onto a tape or CD, and well, in a lot, you could have interstate cases that gets very convoluted. So there's a lot of room for error
Hmm.
in those cases. Um, so it it does take a lot of um, because you've got the investigators, you have the CYS authorities, you have the CPS authorities, you have the people who run the CAC. So there's a lot involved, and if they don't follow through, um, a lot can be missed. And then they have a certain amount of time. Once the information is given over to authorities, they only have a certain amount of time to conduct their investigations. And then they have to close those investigations within, a 90-day period.
Hmm.
And as um, most people, if you've ever been in a situation and know statistically, um, a lot of times it can be child's word against dad's word, mom's word, abuser's word. It could be, you know, uh, just whoever the abuser might be. Um, they have to find the evidence for
Hmm.
the abuse. And if there's not enough evidence, or for substantial enough evidence, it can be founded, it could be unfounded. um, or if in the case, if they don't have enough time to finish their investigation,
Hmm.
then it's unfounded. And
So
you can,
whether
like,
it's true or not, they kind of become the arbiters of truth, and by doing that, they're essentially empowering the abusers.
correct. And statistically, in these cases from state to state across the country, you will find that in our welfare system, in our criminal system, any court system, that there are more unfounded cases
Hmm.
just because they have not been able to get that information, or they don't have the time.
Right.
So there's a lot of good resources out there. It's just being educated on the facts
Hmm.
of why we can't prosecute and put perpetrators away
Well, and
and abusers away.
it even seems to go further than that, because not only are they not being held accountable, they're essentially forcing the children to be around the, we'll say, alleged abuser, because I'm sure there's allegations that aren't always true, but at the same time, if you have kids, because I read in several of these kids, absolutely, there was one, I think, the multiple kids, they basically formed a suicide pact that if they got stuck with their dad, they agreed to all commit suicide. And that just goes to show you the position that these kids are put in, all in this, because it's under the guise that, all the person, and it seems like in most of these cases it's the issue of a father, but the father has these rights or whatever, and and that's what I wanted to get into with this, the re-education. I get it's basically a re-education camp is what it is, because they're trying to tell you what to believe, because from some of the stuff I was reading about what went on at that camp specifically, it it's all gaslighting. They're just trying to spin your head around, 12 different ways to get you to just go along with it. And if you don't go along with it, then you're the whole reason why this issue exists, not because the abuser did something, but because you're against that child being forced to interact with a person that hurt them.
Correct. So these reunification camps exist
Hmm.
across the country. So I had no idea that these even existed in the United States. No, no recollection, no idea. Um, Still can't believe to this day that they exist. Um, I feel like we're in a third world country.
Hmm.
The harm and trauma, the to be so traumatized, and it's one thing as an adult to have to go and live through something, but as children,
Hmm.
to one thing to have the courage to stand up, to tell your about your abuse, to which is what you're supposed to do,
Hmm.
what you're told all through when you go to school and you learn about, stranger danger and everything, and you go for help and you turn to help to your counselors, to your teachers, to your doctor, to your psychologist, and you're looking for help and you're doing the right thing, and you turn to a parent, your mom, and so your mom does what you're supposed to do. um and being in the profession that I am, as a mandated reporter, and then to be so penalized
Hmm.
and so traumatized. I mean, I would do it for a kid on the street, to save a life. Um, so for a child, or for anybody, for an adult to be so strong and to have the voice, to have the courage to come forth, uh, is just amazing, because now in hindsight, I clearly see why people are so afraid to come forward, because it is not worth what you go through, the pain and the suffering and the trauma, um, and especially when we're having children murdered over family court issues and custody cases, and then to have these reunification camps where these children are being threatened and forced into reunification therapists that are telling these children that if you don't have a relationship with your abuser, you are not going to be successful in life. And you are going to be taken for 90 days minimum with zero contact with your good parent, your safe parent, your that whole other side of your family that loves you, that you've known from birth, your other siblings. No contact, no phone calls, no texting, no visitation, no nothing. To be forced to have to be brainwashed
Mm-hmm.
to say that abuse did not occur. And then to go through a reunification camp that separates you into little Nazi organizational groups where you're followed, where you're watched. They have green shirts that are sleeping with you, that are eating with you, who are showing you videos of these psychologists. These are psychotherapists that are the followers. These are like cult followers of the Richard Gardners and the Richard Warsacks, who believe it is okay for adults to touch children, the
Mm-hmm.
pedophilia. And they show them the Welcome Back Pluto videos that um, you have to forgive your abuser for abusing you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are getting along with this other child in this group, we're going to separate you. We see you making a bond and a connection because you have something in common with them. So we're going to separate you.
Right.
You're not allowed to have electronics. There are no electronics. There's no electricity in these cabins. There is no caffeine. There is no nothing. You're cut off from the other world. You're not allowed to leave this camp.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
how long does this go on? Is it a week, 2 weeks?
so this particular camp that we were threatened to was a week, and it was $15,000
Mm-hmm.
for a week. Um, that camp has since been shut down, but only in the sense of shut down, um, probably because of some of the things that went on and has been sort of brought to light. But COVID happened. It was the only camp where they sent both what they called um, the favored parent. They referred to one as the favored parent and the non-favored parent, and you were not allowed to bring up abuse um, at all in psychotherapy. And they would put us. You would go through 3 hours of psychotherapy every morning,
Mm-hmm.
and you would never be allowed with your near your child. You couldn't see your child. You couldn't talk to your child. You couldn't look at your child, and that was the favored parent. Now they coordinated activities with the child with a non-favored parent.
Right.
Um, Now the other camps that are hidden throughout the United States, one of the worst ones is called Family Bridges, is in California. Um, there's some horrific cases going on right now that kids are being taken by transporters. Um, they're all linked together. Some of the very high prestigious psychs that are running these, the courts that are running these,
Mm-hmm.
the judges, the attorneys, They one is even linked to the Britney Spears case through her. Um, I'm trying to think what her.
Conservatorship.
Thank you. Her
Well,
conservatorship.
that you know what, that was one thing that me and Abby really got into the Britney, like the Britney's been replaced thing, because it sounds crazy, but then when you see the evidence that's out there, and because what was that one we watched? They had it's like a it's someone else, it's someone with a filter that makes them look like Britney Spears, but a few of the frames you can see the filter breaks, and it's not her, it's a completely different person. The eye color's wrong, all kinds of stuff.
And I
Uh
didn't
huh.
really think anything of it, but like my first two CDs I ever got as a child was Aaron Carter and Britney Spears. I'm not saying I necessarily liked either of them, but those were the first two CDs I ever got. So it
Right.
kind of stuck out. And with all the talk of what was going on with Britney, I didn't necessarily not care, but I didn't really care at the same time. It wasn't like making a major impact on my day. But then all of a sudden on YouTube up popped this little, so to speak, conspiracy theory, and I watched it and I kept seeing more and more stuff about it to the point I brought it up to my husband. I was like, call me crazy. Call me crazy. I know, especially because I'm about to bring up Britney Spears to you. But I saw this and I think it's worth at least watching and talking about. And that's when we got into it and we were like, holy crap, there might be something here. This is insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the very least, it's extremely bizarre. So what's the link? You're saying there's a link between the camps and the conservatorship?
Yes. So Jane Schatz. So Jane Ellen Schatz. It's Shatz. She has her PhD, so she claims. She was directly hired um, by it's would have been Brittany's team or her father that assisted with Brittany being put away. She is documented on her court documents. Um, and we do have proof of that. We have court documents.
Hmm.
Another mother in California um, actually went in and was able to obtain court documents. So Jane Schatz is one who is on um, the family bridges and overcoming barriers. So there's a very woven web, if you want to say,
Mm.
of and even with Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has done the same. So again, it's these very high conflict and abuse cases. California has something completely different. I had no idea. They have what they call private judging out there. It's a whole $1 billion industry out there
Hmm.
where you hire your own private judge. So of course, I mean, as it sounds, obviously that takes a lot of money, a lot of money to do your own hire your own private judge.
Oh, at least
Um,
they're honest about it, unlike around here where, there might be some behind the table shit going on and they pretend that there isn't.
right, but it's even worse because you hire and they do it through this group called jams, so it is so corrupt because they're all they're all married to like one another. Someone's an attorney, someone's a judge. They get these paid custody evaluators that are all referred to one another, and in come the Jane Schatz. And it's all the Hollywood, it's all the and unfortunately, one of the mothers who was sent from San Francisco to the
Hmm.
camp where I was in Vermont, um, her ex not only put her through overcoming barriers, but once they got back to San Francisco, she wanted to move near her family and
Hmm.
come back to the East Coast, and he has tormented her. He had the kids picked up by these transporters, taken through the night, put through another camp called Turning Points,
Hmm.
and the the oldest daughter has aged out, come back home. and the minor, the boy, unfortunately, is still not back with mom. But they've had to go through the whole private judging, and um, one of the judges is, of course, one of the judges that was um, involved with, I do believe, the Britney Spears. They're all um, Marjorie Slabach, Slabach. So they're all very much tied together
Mm-hmm.
through all these cases, um, and even in my case here, a very high profile psych that was hired for out of Harrisburg. Um, he's been used in Virginia and DC and Maryland, Ohio. He goes far and wide.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he travels to Canada. He travels to Arizona to put on huge AFCC conferences. He's
Mm-hmm.
very much involved, and we've linked him back to an attorney that is on the Jennifer Dulos case. I don't know if you're aware. She was the mom that was murdered in Connecticut, and they have Jennifer's um, law because of her. And her husband was the uh, I'm not even sure how you say FOTIS, Photius
Mm-hmm.
Dulos. And then when they were coming after him, he ended up, they found him dead,
Wow.
suicide.
So back to the just really family court custody in general, because one of the things I always got a kick out of was the one thing the judges will always say is, well, we're doing this for whatever's in the best interest of the child, but yet even to spend a day in court, usually both parents are spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, in the court playing these games. Sometimes you have both parents might be decent people and they, for whatever reason, they can't hash it out outside of court. Sometimes like this, you have an abuser, you have another. I've seen somebody that really has a drug issue, and depending on whether they can afford the best attorney or not, they might get custody over somebody that works a job and actually cares about the kids and etc. But that was always the one thing that got me with custody stuff was, oh, it's in the kid's best interest, but yet how is it in anyone's best interest for these parents to spend this much money, both of them usually, on these attorneys' fees and then you have the camps and everything else. I mean, could you put a number on throughout? I mean, this has been a years long battle for you. How much money could you give me a figure? Do you think you've spent just on custody?
Oh, you know, I unfortunately have two separate fathers who have been putting me through family court
Mm-hmm.
from my son's birth. Um, this is very shameful because it was constantly them filing contempts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost my house. I have lost everything, literally everything. Um,
So you can't even really put a price on it. It's just it's been money and your life's pretty much been destroyed over
well,
that.
it has, and to the point where I've always worked multiple jobs, lost my home, um, and you know, I've sold things. Um, my parents and my dad is no longer with us, but my parents have helped, and I've had to try to pay back as much as I can. But it comes to a point where you go pro se, or
Mm-hmm.
you just don't. You unfortunately have to, like in this case, when you lose your children because they beat you down so bad, and then the courts, um, because I never I never had a situation where, you know, I have a clean background. I go through background checks and fingerprinting and child abuse clearances for my job. You know, I don't have, you know, anything, and you know, I hate to say I don't have any life, but I really have no life now. And
Right.
um, but you can't even put a number on it. But I know that there's other women that um, they've I don't honestly don't even know how they do it. They take out loans, but they're up into like two, three, 400,000. I I really don't. I don't know how they're funding it, but it's the point where you just can't keep going because you have to say enough is enough. But you know, and all the abuse that I've gone through in every form, the worst is finding out of my sons, and then for the court to take my children,
Mm-hmm.
to be so humiliated, and then to go to a reunification camp that you don't even realize that these things exist, and then to be so traumatized. You know, it's my civil duty to make people aware, to educate.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to make sure my kids are safe and healthy, you know.
Right.
Um, and I, you know, obviously one is a lot older now, but you just you look at life so differently because your life is never the same. You can't put amount of money on anything, but like nothing matters anymore. Like people want all these, you know, cars and homes, and I don't care about any of that, you
Right.
know, because nothing matters. Everything is just um that's all material stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've kind of lost your life and you've lost your kids over corruption and evil,
Mm-hmm.
and to abuse, it's uh yeah, the world is flipped upside down. I
Right.
guess you could say.
Right.
um
And for anybody that's wondering, Abby stepped out there. We've had a pretty long day. I think she she wasn't sure if she was even going to be on tonight, but I think the lack of sleep's getting to her. She'll probably still be trolling the comments though. But one thing I did want to ask is because obviously you have a ton of experience with this. Would you have any advice, any pointers that you would give to anybody that is just finding themselves like the advice I always give is absolutely don't go to court unless you have to as far as custody stuff goes. Find a way to work it out. Once you're
oh, absolutely.
you know once and I think that kind of goes with everything because the last thing you want to do is get the government involved because they just make everything 20 times worse and cost you more money. But say someone's in a position where you know the other parent takes them to court and they might have to be dealing with this type of shit. Do you have any advice? Like, what's the first? Because obviously, you know, they're going to probably have to spend a lot of money on an attorney, whatever. Is there anything you can do at the beginning to kind of maybe nip this in the bud a little bit? Do you think?
Yeah, so if if there is any any inkling, if there is any I mean true abuse, alleged abuse, and if the abuser um, is throwing out there any verbiage that is throwing up flags of parental alienation, or you hear terms from attorneys or judges
Mm-hmm.
of like high conflict divorce, um, parental alienation, reunification therapy, reunification camps, anything, and please, I mean, look for resources. Look, because there's a ton out there now. Because we don't want you to get on the wrong side of it because you're just headed down the wrong path, and you're gonna. It's going to go ugly really fast, really bad. Um, because you don't want that, because they will, it's a game plan and there's no way out. Once you step forward and you step into it, you're done.
Right.
They, there's no, there, honestly, there's no way out. They, it doesn't matter what you say. You could have the best attorney. If, if there is any kind of money, and typically there's money involved, somebody in that party has money, um, and there's abuse, it's, and I always like to go back to, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, like the Jerry Sandusky's, the Larry Nassars, the Jeffrey Epstein,
Hmm.
these cases, it is, it, it is what it is. It's the facts.
Right.
And we're not sugarcoating it. It is, it's, it's here. It's lives in our court system. Um, and as much as they want to say it doesn't, oh, but it does. And our guardian ad litems will not protect your children.
Hmm.
They are hired through the courts. They are given to you as a parent, whether you like it or not, for your child, and they will make you as the parent pay for it. And they
Right.
don't care about your child either. Your child can tell that guardian ad litem what they want, and at the end of the day, that guardian ad litem is going to do whatever makes that judge happy.
Hmm.
And
Well, at the end of the day, the attorneys are in it for the money. That's just how it is, and anybody that
oh,
thinks any different is going to find out. But that's the problem, is that the judges are all for just kind of playing along the playing the long game, stringing along. Because that's I don't think there's ever been a custody case that's gone to court that lasted less than a year, less than 2 years. I mean, even if you don't end up with the crazier stuff with the camps and everything, it's going to hurt you financially. It's going to, there's stress between, because it stresses everybody out. The kids know that. And once again, it
right,
goes back to, oh, it's in the kids' best interest. But what is the best interest of the kids? Once again, when all this money, all this stress, everything else, it's just it. People,
right,
I mean, I don't know how much of my stuff you've followed, but most of my stuff is focused on how screwed up and backwards the criminal justice system is, and it is, especially in Blair County. But it's like the more
right,
you dig into the civil stuff, the worse it is too, because it's like you don't have to worry about going to jail for the most part, unless you got somebody who likes to contempt you every other day. But
right.
they don't have to throw you in jail. They just destroy you financially, and that's almost as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, that's exactly. And with the way that I saw this play out, um, in my situation with, a judge forcing a visitation, and my son was, um, you know, called the cops, and the cops treated him horribly, just horribly. Well, because it's so easy, because, when dad has money and his, attorney is, very well connected, it's so easy. And, I'm nothing,
Mm-hmm.
who am I? I'm nothing. Um, and it's just, yeah, it's a bad situation. And when you've been trashed through town,
Mm-hmm.
and of course it looks really bad, but more children are being taken, um, from women, um, and from moms. And I mean, it's a known fact that it's the court
Well,
system. It's a billion-dollar industry. They make money off of taking children. Um,
that was part of the, because for years it was the women had kind of the, I guess you'd say, the advantage in a custody battle. And I've actually heard judges in Blair County say, well, because it was like that for so long, now we got to give the men the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, you shouldn't need to
yeah,
give the decent parent the benefit of the doubt. That's how that's just how it should be, but it's not.
right, right. I mean,
So,
I've never been treated so horribly, where I wasn't even allowed another female in the courtroom,
Mm-hmm.
and yet, the judge allowed both fathers to be in the courtroom at the same time, against me with the custody hearings. And when it came time to, um, to just go over, um, some of the abuse, when I asked the judge if he could excuse the one father since it wasn't his son, it's kind of like a HIPAA violation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he looked at me and said, "No, absolutely not. He would not remove that father." Um, it's just the the crazy stuff that I've never encountered. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's sick. It's really sickening. But I mean, you know, when you talk about, if you know anything about ACEs, with mental health and with trauma, we really want our society, our children growing up to be. I mean, look at our world with everything, and then when you put them, I mean, again, a known fact that a lot of parents, a lot of households are not together, and then when you have such high rates of divorce, and then you have this stuff going on, our kids are so drastically affected, and we have to do better.
Mm-hmm.
um and then when you have this crazy stuff going on, and when we aren't looking out for the, like you said, the best interest, what's the best interest? Well, obviously not stripping children from their siblings and taking them for 90 days. Like, you wouldn't even do that from a father. You wouldn't even do that to take a child from their grandparent or their pet, 90 days no contact
Yeah.
with, like, that's inhuman, from a parent that didn't even do anything.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, so we've covered a lot. And do you want to give like a closing statement, maybe sum it all up?
Yeah, I really do hope that, um at, at least, for anybody out there, I really do hope and pray that this does stop. Um, it's it's gotten worse, not better. Um, for our children's sake, for all our sakes. Um, and it is, like I said, it's a civil duty, that we have to look beyond, and we have to do better, and we have to stop the corruption, um, because we have to stop the trauma, we have to stop the pain, and we can't we can't make this about the money and the greed.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way, we need laws, but laws are not being followed. And obviously in family court, there's absolutely no oversight whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
There, we have judges and attorneys who are not mandated to do any kind of training, so they don't know. So being in the field I'm in, I have to constantly keep up with, credentials and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always room to do better, but we have to look out for the best for our children. We have to protect our youth. We have to protect our kids. It's just, safety is safety is number one, and always has been for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but family court is a complete nightmare.
So
I don't
it's a
recommend
shit
it.
show for everybody. Yeah.
It is, and I would recommend anybody to not go through it. But of course, if you're in a true abusive situation, you have to save yourself too, and you have to find help.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, hey, we appreciate you being with us tonight. I hope everybody learned something, and we'll have to do it again here one of these days.
Yeah, this is a big topic, all over the United States, and actually Canada and other countries that a lot of stuff's going on. It's not good.
Right. Well, I'm hoping too. Maybe we'll have some new people get a hold of us that have similar situations, and maybe we can help them out too. Because that's something that happens a lot of times when you bring up a topic that it's. I'm not going to say it's specialized to a certain group of people, but not everybody has gone through this. So hopefully the people who have will reach out, and maybe we can help them out. So.
I appreciate you.
All right. Well, have a good night, and
Thank you
guess
for calling in.
yeah, and
Thank
if you
you guys.
yeah, if you want to tune in, we're going to be taking some calls. I don't know whether anybody's going to call in or not. It's always a crap show. Maybe just have to wait and see what happens. So, but yeah, thanks again. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Night.
Sorry to everyone who did notice that I did walk off for a little bit earlier.
I guess I should
Thank
turn
you.
your mic back on, huh?
Thank you. Again, to reiterate, thank you to everyone who noticed I walked off earlier. As many of you know, and those of you who don't know, I actually have something called Crohn's disease. So there's times where my stomach doesn't always agree with me. So there's times where I need to step back, sit down, lay down a different way. I appreciate all your patience, and that's why I managed to make it back as quick as I did. But anyone with Crohn's knows, man, when it gets you, it gets you.
Well,
It does
I
not
told
care
everybody
when.
you were just tired because it's been a long day, but you never know with you. Sometimes it's the Crohn's, sometimes it's tired, sometimes it's tired Crohn's.
It's a
That's
mix
the
of both
worst.
usually. I am tired as well, but it happened to be a combo in this case. It was Crohn's and tired. Luckily, I was able to bounce back quick from it. I really am glad that I was able to. But if you ever see me wander off, I am still in the comments. I am still watching. I am still there to respond to you guys when I see it. I might be gone, but I'm not out.
Yeah,
I'm working through it.
she might not be on screen, but she's playing behind the scenes. So, all right, guys, if anybody wants to give us a ring, it's 412-440-3484. That's 412-440-3484.
And if you don't want to call in, thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. Anyone who will tune in after tonight, we appreciate all your support from now to forever. And again, if anybody has anything they want to talk about, let us know. DM us. Obviously, we're not afraid to talk about it. We want you all to have your stories heard.
Yeah,
Carefully.
we're always looking for new topics, and I think we're probably going to wait till next weekend to do. There's a big case coming up. I have a feeling the DA's office is going to take a big L, but we'll have to wait and see because you never know what the jury's going to do.
And I really wish we could say more about that. But
Well, yeah, I'm not because I mean
Nope.
I know a lot, but
nope, we're
they'll
going to be quiet.
yeah they'll be crying. Oh, he's trying to bias the jury.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
And again, on even the topic tonight, maybe to not the extreme. When it comes to like family court and custody stuff, oh my goodness, I wish I could take the deep dive with y'all because it is crazy. She wasn't kidding. It gets crazy to every degree, no matter what level it's at. Like, I never in a million years imagined that it could get as crazy as it has gotten. And as soon as I am able to talk about it, oh, I cannot look forward to it. We'll go there, but
dropping some truth bombs. Who the fuck even uses that phrase?
I would love to know.
Receipts and truth bombs and
Receipts. We want to talk about receipts. I have so many receipts in my freaking wallet. Our daughter loves to turn them into origami on that note.
yeah, I am not.
I don't think we're
surprised.
getting anything else.
Yeah, no, everybody's shy tonight. Nobody wants to talk. That's all
To
right.
those in the comments that are talking, thank you. We appreciate you. I'm still kind of on the fence on do we like directly message, like call them out and appreciate them, like, or do I just keep?
Whatever you
We're
wanna do.
learning. We're learning. But to those of you that are there, we appreciate you. We see you. I am watching. If you see me looking at the table, it's because I'm looking at my phone and I am following the feed.
Yeah,
But I am
just not as
tired.
popular without Renee. That's pretty. I think we had over 1,000 views by the time that was over, and like 200 some comments. So
I'm really glad that she came on to talk, and honestly, it really kind of broke my heart in a way to hear what she and her family has gone through, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate that she felt open enough, so to speak, to come on and talk to us about something that, to that degree, like that's hard. to any level. Like that's hard to do. To
Yeah.
open up to
Well,
people,
I
especially
think,
on the live to the internet. Like,
yeah.
and I really am glad. And again, I appreciate all of those who did watch in. Like, thank you all for being so kind and showing her the love and like support. Like, that made me really happy to see. Like, if nothing else, I just love seeing people support other people, especially through crap. To put it
Yeah.
generally, through crap in general. Like,
Yep.
this is what I love to see, people helping other people, because we need that now more than ever on every level of everything. Like,
Absolutely.
love each other.
Yeah.
Spread
So,
love, not hate.
all right. Well, I guess if nobody's going to call in tonight, we're probably going to kill it here. It's been almost an hour, so that's good enough for me.
And to those of you who don't know, I'm a huge nerd, and tomorrow is August 6th, and at 9 p.m., there's a very special episode of one of my favorite ever shows coming out. So
Pray for me. Pray for me.
You do too, because I'm about to binge about 30 episodes after this to try and catch up, because I've been waiting 20 plus freaking years to see this, and I refuse to miss it the night that it comes out. So pray for him. He's going to need all the prayers. I'm about to go down the deep hole of the weeb world. To those who
Yep.
know, you know, and thank you. I love you all.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us tonight. And we should be. Are we going to do one Wednesday? Because here's the other thing. We're kind of torn between, because, we don't get quite as much on the Wednesday night. So maybe we'll just do more of what, like a.
You know what? Tomorrow we're going to put out, or sorry, rather, Monday, we're going to put out a poll. You guys tell us, do you want Wednesday night open mic to where we just leave the phone open, him and I kind of banter back and forth, and y'all call in if you want to, or just kind of leave it alone? You let us know, because right now we're not sure what to do.
Yeah. Do you want more of just us just kind of being stupid, or do you like the guests? We're just trying to figure out what works. So, because obviously the whole point of doing this is, if we aren't keeping the viewers entertained, then what's the point, right? So
We can sit and talk to each other in the end of the week. We don't need to do that in front of the camera. So, like,
Yeah.
let us know what you guys think, please. We'll try and set out a poll on Monday to hear what you all think. And thank you, everyone.
I'll just make one after this. So
Or
just
that.
do
That
a
works.
little bit of touch up on the audio and stuff, and then I'll put the poll out. So,
Sounds like a plan.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, till next time.